Hey everybody, this is Rydo and we're back to Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel and video game news. Today is Monday, January 9th. I guess I should continue talking after saying the date, yeah. Since that's the whole point we're here. Let's see. Because I'm logging in every day, some of these news things probably are things I haven't looked at, but at a certain level I guess it kind of doesn't matter either. Like whatever changes or notices or issues happen will just happen, and there's really no reason to pay any mental energy towards looking at them. For the accountability section over the weekend, I scheduled some videos. As I was running my macro, I made a mistake and had some videos trying to schedule for 2022 because the year wrapped around, and that caused me a little bit of extra frustration. But mostly what I've been doing is just taking it easy and accomplishing not a ton. Part of the thing certainly is that particularly doing the daily YouTube shorts takes no input whatsoever, so it is just taking up time on my computer, and the macro is slow. Honestly, it really should be able to, with a better programming language, without having to go through YouTube's web interface. If there was an actual application that worked through YouTube's API, which I don't think YouTube's API is particularly that good even, or even that well supported anymore. This whole thing could be done a lot faster, but with the program I've made, the macro I've made, it works. It just takes it takes probably 2 to 5 minutes per video, and so if you're uploading 50 videos, you're talking at least 100 minutes to 250 minutes. That's a lot of time, certainly. It's a lot of time to sit around and do nothing, which is the main issue there, too. I could probably get the daily YouTube shorts going right when I'm falling asleep if I was a little bit smarter. And then the other videos have to be babysat because of YouTube's website not allowing my macro to just increment a single number in the title for an episode number, which is just really dumb. But it's by scheduling a lot of videos. I still have some scheduling to do, a decent amount. There are definitely 2 to 3 weekends out of a month that I'm not scheduling videos when I really should. It does point me towards the 5th month of 2023 as far as having pre-recorded footage scheduled and YouTube shorts. I opened up a 3rd time slot for YouTube shorts. Increasingly, my channel is becoming successful. I'm getting more subscribers, and I'm starting to feel what could even be a bit of a snowball effect. I've gone over 500 subscribers, and I feel like there very possibly is a hard-coded number in the algorithm that says once somebody has 500 subscribers, they start to get promoted more, or the algorithm is just better at promoting videos at that point. But yeah, I have to 100% attribute that to putting the video at the bottom that just says like, subscribe, click the bell, which that has been from the beginning, even 5 years ago when I 5+ years ago when I started my channel. That's what people said, is that you had to literally do that annoying thing on YouTube where you stop your video and ask people to subscribe. Although noticeably, it's been many years since anybody I've followed has really stopped the video at the beginning and asked somebody to subscribe. So most of the people I guess I'm following on YouTube are just not even trying to get more subscribers. because they're so big. Yeah, obviously PewDiePie doesn't stop his video in the first couple of minutes. Instead, what they do is they put the sponsored ad in the first 2 minutes of the video, which is a requirement for sponsored advertisers almost always. And that is the new YouTube annoyance, certainly, is to just barely tease what the video is going to be and then immediately go into a sponsored ad. Particularly if you're somebody on YouTube who isn't either ad blocking or YouTube Premium, so you would have watched potentially 2 or more ads before a video even played, which that's certainly annoying. The ad blocking app on Android is still working for the most part, as far as I've not reverted to a point where I'm watching ads on YouTube, but if that wasn't working, I definitely would have to start to reconsider what I'm doing with my time. It'd be hard to stop watching all YouTube videos, but I could certainly see stopping watching a lot of them. Let's see if he's gonna cancel. If he cancels this, I think I just end the turn and let him win, because there's just like no point in even trying. If he can cancel that effect, he'll be able to cancel every other effect, and I'll lose. So yeah, there was a very fast jump from going slightly over 500 maybe a week ago to now it seems like I'm getting a new subscriber every day. So if I got a new subscriber every day on average in the next 500 days, which is almost 2 years, then I'd be at that 1,000 point. Which, yeah, that's not in any way really helpful. Well, to be that honest, it would be way nicer, certainly, if it's much more of a snowball effect, and then in the next 90 days, maybe 90 days is a little too ambitious to get to 1,000 subscribers, and then we certainly, the next stage is to see if my channel gets monetized for some other reason, or if they reject the forum completely. Because I could certainly see these live streams being looked at, and then the fact that I'm looking at adult games now, and them using that as an excuse to not monetize me, or just them not monetizing me for very broad, ridiculous reasons that they don't monetize a lot of people. YouTube is upgrading its terms of service. This may be the same upgrade to terms of service that they announced and rolled out months ago, but they put out a new video, and they are definitely giving people about 6 months to re-agree to the new terms of service. Otherwise, they're going to be kicked out of the partner program, which that definitely seems like they're trying to kick people who are dead accounts out of the partner program and say, hey, if you're not even checking your email, if you're not agreeing to these new terms, then we're going to eliminate you. Because obviously YouTube, being run by idiots, in my opinion, are not, they don't want medium content creators or small content creators in the partner program. They want to hoard all the wealth to the biggest of the biggest creators, which isn't going to work, really. I suppose NFL football fans probably know this problem more than even I do as a YouTuber, in that there is this just general desire, I suspect, by team owners in the NFL to pay more and more money to the top tier winning football players, and then the new kids and the linebackers, the the people who are in positions that are just less sexy and less appealing or less necessary are getting paid less and less. And that's what I assume the salary cap whole system is trying to address in NFL, but of course I don't know anything about NFL, so I could be totally wrong about all of that. I could summon a 2, and that is that. I should probably just activate a spell just for the fun of it. But yeah. If everybody who is subscribed to my channel could convince one other person to subscribe to my channel, then I'd be over that 1,000 point mark and I could start to get monetized. And I would try to run ads extremely infrequently, but I would like to see this channel after so many years start paying off for itself. And yeah, I don't want to get rich on it or anything. Rich would be nice, obviously, but just a reasonable living wage off of being a YouTuber and being able to do the things I can do. It's also annoying that, fairly obviously, my channel is evolving into me doing less and less creative work or critical work, in that the YouTube shorts are just showing off new games. I am still putting in work behind that, so like, it is not a 100% automated system. I could potentially do that, certainly, just pull a list of every single game that came out on Steam, do no curation whatsoever on it, and then make 5-6 YouTube shorts coming out. For the new 6 a.m. time slot of YouTube shorts, they are going to be labeled the same way as check out this PC game with the emoji on it. What I've decided to do is to eventually evolve that into a what's new on Steam. So there's just going to be like 3 different titles every day for the same thing. That way there's just an ABC test going on always. Plus it just will make it easier to know whether or not you've seen this one, as far as the title that shows up that day. Of course, the YouTube Shorts recommendation engine may recommend older YouTube Shorts, but I really can't do anything about that, so yeah. But yeah, eventually I'll evolve it that way. There is problems with the way the videos get uploaded and the order in which they're kind of made, but I haven't thought about how I could upload things kind of backwards and invert the stack, as it were, so that there are videos that are going to get YouTube Shorts that are relatively new, and then there's some videos that are going to get YouTube Shorts that are potentially 2 or 3 months old. I also have a thought, certainly, as far as scheduling videos, that perhaps by this time, by October this year, I'll jump back into having 2 pre-recorded footage things, which, yeah, I guess that's fine, because the YouTube Shorts are not putting out notifications anyways, so having 2, even up to 3, 2 or 3 things come out every day would potentially have 3 notifications come out. Of course, the live stream is supposed to be the third one on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. But yeah, for this year, I really have been on a tear of going through more mature, more adult games, and there is a desire within me to jump back and play another Lego game and another kids game. There's particularly a lack of kids games in general that I've played. Of course, my channel is very broad, in which I just cover every game, so it is weird that I feel like a lot of parents or people just not in the know of the broad range of video games in particular would try to put my channel in the box and go, oh well, you've played Lego games in the past, you did an experiment with Minecraft Wheels on the Bus video that was for like newborn toddlers, so obviously your channel is a kids channel, and then these live streams are totally for more adults. I'm assuming anyone on the chat is an adult. I'm treating them like an adult. I'm showing adult games and talking about adult games. At a certain level, movie critics aren't really ever asked to watch kids' movies. Maybe on a rare occasion they will, but yeah, a movie critic really should be all over the place, and he should be watching the Detective Pikachu Sonic movies as much as they are watching like the most adult of adult movies. And movies in particular, I guess, are a weird example there, because most movies are trying to play for a PG-13 rating anyways. TV channels, I guess, is the better equivalent, and TV channels don't have that same limitation in which you would have an entire channel that just felt like it was only for one age group. Even Cartoon Network, which really feels like it should be 24 hours, 7 days a week of cartoons for kids, has their Adult Swim taking off their entire late night lineup. And then this new world of Netflix, there's certainly a mess there. Yeah, I suppose for accountability section, I've been watching, oh, I don't even know, Paradise PD, I think is the name of this Netflix cartoon comedy show. It's awful. It's really, really bad, and makes a lot of references to a bunch of other animated comedy shows like Family Guy, and it always looks worse around it. I just don't think the jokes are good or the writing's that good. The premise is somewhat weak too. But yeah, I'm just powering through it as I'm being lazy and not making new recordings. Notably, I didn't play any No More Heroes over the weekend, and I really should have played more of that. I want to lose momentum on a game that's already grindy. There is, I suppose, a maximum limit to the number of YouTube shorts I can make in that same form factor. And YouTube content creators are being given a rare reprieve from the usual pushback you would get from changing the style of content that you would have on your channel with YouTube Shorts. If you were trying to do YouTube Shorts outside of this new push for YouTube Shorts by being promoted by YouTube, you would almost certainly have had to create a second account and already be popular, because YouTubers definitely are not a fans of you changing your style or the way you the way you make content or the type of content you're covering. Alright. This is going to probably counter and mess me up. If not, I may be able to get Zeus on the field, even if it doesn't let me destroy this card. Yeah. Yeah, I still lose there. Moving on with news. OBS Studio version 29.0 is out. They've added new support for new AV1 encoder GPUs, Intel HEVC encoders, which I don't think you'd really want to use those, but the AV1 encoders might make some sense. They've added an upward compressor filter. I'm not sure what that is. They've added a 3-band equalizer filter. These both, I assume, would be filters under video audio source. They've added support for native HEVC and ProRes encoders on macOS, including PO10, or is that supposed to be Pro10, and HDR. They've added support for macOS Desk View, which I don't even know what that is. They've added an update channels for receiving beta and release candidate builds to Windows, which, okay. And then they've updated the WebSockets interface, which they are, I know, slightly working on WebSockets and revamping WebSockets. At a certain level, I wouldn't be surprised if OBS stops with the numbered upgrades for the nice round number of version 30 until it can redo almost all of its code, because from what I heard in an interview with the creator, a lot of the code probably could be redone. The replay buffer memory limit is now set to 75% of your installed system RAM instead of a fixed 8 gigabytes of RAM, which, having 64 gigabytes, I guess that would put me somewhere around 48 gigabytes of replay buffer RAM if necessary. There's obviously a lot of one of the problems I've had certainly is this display capture screen renaming and saving Windows. This caused this caused problems with me where I turn off one monitor, or I turn on my Nintendo Switch on one monitor, and it would unplug and replug things on Windows, and it would move everything around, and then I'd have to reset it. It seems like they're going to really fix that issue. You can mute individual browser docs. You can now right-click and inspect individual browser docs. They've added support for higher refresh rates. Let's see. They've raised the speed at which the dynamic bitrate recovers after a drop. And there's definitely some like default settings that they've added to that has, I don't know if I really should have played that at that point, but whatever. Definitely it seems like there's some major improvements here. Now for me, what I've decided to do with OBS is only jump into the most recent minor number. So if they're releasing version 29.0 right now, I would be looking for a version 28.1, 2, or 3, whichever one it would be. And then also be careful of fake ads for fake versions of OBS with viruses in them. But yeah, by only moving up to the previous letter, there's a slightly higher chance of stability, and I do want some stability since I need OBS to work. And not just have the highest amount of and I'm saying and I'm way too much today. You don't want just the newest version of the software or something you're constantly tweaking, like I'm constantly tweaking my Wi-Fi router, which I also spent far too much time yesterday doing that. Although it did seem to, when all is said and done, actually improve the situation quite a bit. What sucks about that is after several hours working at that, I honestly had to take a breath and ask myself, have I improved it at all or not? And the answer is yes. I was able to improve it. Particularly, I'm trying to reduce buffer bloat, which is maybe more of a just fictional thought than even a real problem. But doing the buffer bloat tests and speed tests combined, I was able to go through my 6 gigahertz Wi-Fi router. That was stupid on my part. I caused that pain myself. If I just put that in defense mode. Yeah, before I started, buffer bloat could be at 0 if I cranked down my internet from being about 350 megabits per second all the way down to about 100 megabits. Now I can get it down to 0 or about 0 on added latency on the Wi-Fi in particular, which is already a stressed test. If I crank it down to about 250 to 280 megabits per second, which, no, I might be at like 180, not 280. Either way, it was an improvement, and that was just by enabling a protection on the Wi-Fi, just trying to reduce bad packets from coming through. So probably just getting closer to what the actual standards are for a Wi-Fi AC in and 802.11 in, 802.11 AC. But yeah, it definitely was a lot of fiddling with settings and fiddling with the QoS settings to see which one is better. It really is like doing a eye chart where the doctor is just going better or worse, better or worse. Like that's all you can really do. And really, I'm having to crank down the internet service speed a lot because the real world application of this is that I would have like a YouTube video playing, and then I'd have my RSS feed or reader updating and hitting a lot of HTML websites to download web pages at the same time, and I would be running the test, and I would be playing a game, 4 or 5 things on my one cell phone, and that's just the crazy multitasking world that I live in. So having none of that enabled and just going to a buffer bloat test, obviously I can get better scores at that point, if there's no other congestion. But that's not the real world experience that I'm looking for. The real world experience is to have moderate levels of congestion and usage on the internet and still not have any problems to overshoot that issue. But yeah, I've definitely still experimenting there and wasted way too much time experimenting with that. There is some concerning news as somebody who is anti-censorship in that Censored Gaming on YouTube, who is the de facto authority, as there really wasn't any competition covering censorship in video games, has not made a video in 10 months. So I don't know if this is a case where they've just given up and didn't say anything about it, or if he had some kind of YouTube strike. Even if he did have a YouTube strike, though, 10 months is far too long, and it's laughable to say that there would be no like there would be like no new censored story to cover in the past 10 months. Yes, it has been dry in the past 10 months, but it hasn't been that dry. Let's just go ahead and toss this. Could have done two actually and destroyed this primal token thing. Yeah, if we look at Censored Gaming's Twitter profile here, he retweeted something from December 18th about that, and then he retweeted a Wall Street Journal. And then June 8th, he said he's looking for tips. But yeah, it definitely seems like somewhere around June he stopped running out of videos. Let's see. Last time he had a Play Asia offer was in January of 2022. So maybe he just lost his sponsorship and was only in it for the money. I don't know. That's a possibility. Let's see if I can look at his Facebook. See what Facebook even looks like. Yeah. Well, one of the things here is he in January of 2022 he got COVID, so maybe he's just incredibly sick at this point. But yeah, he hasn't posted anything since January 24th on Facebook. So yeah, Censored Gaming is just AWOL. That's the wrong phrase, certainly, but yeah, he definitely seems like he's just completely missing. I will add him to my Twitter following list and see if he shows back up, and I already followed him on YouTube, but yeah, those fighting the anti-censorship in video games in particular fight are few and far between, and so to lose even one person is to lose a significant source of information. Yeah. Guess we could look at his Patreon to see anything here. Yeah, his Patreon here has $1 a month, $5 a month, and $10 a month, way more than any of the lackluster things I've done on my Patreon, which is probably not even active again. It is slimy to say that yes, if I started getting money from YouTube, I might start hiring somebody to make better Patreon goals, or just a better Patreon page. But yeah, that would be something that would potentially make some sense, to put any effort whatsoever in the Patreon, to get away from money going to YouTube through YouTube. Not the Patreon's much better, but yeah. As far as Censored Gaming's Patreon, $10 a month is his biggest investment, which isn't that much, and he's working towards a goal of 3% towards having his own website, which would really help, certainly a lot. The last update as far as recent posts on Patreon was April 18th, and they're all just locked, which I imagine, particularly for Censored Gaming, it would make some sense for him to have uncensored versions of his videos for Patreon members. But it is a sad statement that subscribers, as I'm right now being kind of happy just to get over 500 subscribers, having 276 subscribers still doesn't guarantee momentum for a lot of content creators. Like, that you could just stop making things for 10 months and that wouldn't in some way be so detrimental or such a negative idea that it would stop content creators from doing that. Although, in all fairness, we've seen the likes of giant content creators with millions upon millions of subscribers just give up on YouTube and content creators. And I don't think it's always just because they particularly had enough money, enough success that they could retire early. I don't even know what early retirement, why that would sound particularly appealing to people. Particularly content creators. You would assume content creators are for the most part doing something that they love or like, and it just wouldn't make a lot of sense in your youth, if you're healthy, that you would want to just stop doing the thing you kind of love and like in favor of doing basically nothing. Nothing sounds appealing, certainly for a short amount of time, but eventually you get bored, particularly when you're young. A somewhat connected thought certainly is that there's a slick deals right now for like the Blu-ray of Cowboy Bebop for like $15, and I'm like, yeah, that would be really nice to buy, but I cannot, for the life of me, justify actually buying it, in the fact that I've just never... I'm just never going to really have that kind of free time in which I would want to actually sit down and put a Blu-ray of Cowboy Bebop in a disc to watch, instead of just doing the lazier thing of pulling up Cowboy Bebop on some kind of streaming service or any other anime on a streaming service. Let's see if we can do 3 cards this time. I wanted to bring up this guy so I can do this. Alright. See how this goes. Yeah, there's probably a way I could have taken that further. And won in that one turn. Anyways, I guess I've been rambling long enough. Let's start going through the Video Games Chronicle articles. We'd already covered this. NetEase acquired Skybox Labs. eBay UK has the top pre-order deals for Hogwarts Legacy, Dead Space, and Forspoken. I feel like Video Games Chronicles is still moving kind of slow to get back into announcing new news, and we're just still a little slow in this new year to getting to news. January and February tends to be a news drought, a video game drought anyways. Hogwarts Legacy, I believe, is already out on Steam, and for at least a brief moment there was the most popular, most played game on the Steam storefront. So any thought of people boycotting it because of the creator's controversies around the creator and her just general bad attitude, it seems like that seems to not really exist. At the end of the day, people do separate the art from the artist, and this almost certainly proves that, enough that they want to play a Harry Potter game, and they actually like Harry Potter enough to overlook the content creator. Let's see. Is there any value in doing anything else here? I don't think there is. Let's just end it. Could I possibly have gotten this up to a higher amount of damage to maybe get a better reward? I don't think so. Maybe I could have leaked summoned it something if I had a daily quest that required that, but I don't really need to go out of my way to do those kinds of daily quests. Let's see. Video Games Chronicle points out that Ash's final Pokemon episodes will see the return of Brock and Misty, which totally makes a lot of sense, but it kind of also, as an outsider looking in, as somebody who has probably only seen maybe 3 or 4 episodes of Pokemon out of what I imagine is closer to 1,500 episodes, the fact that Brock and Misty kind of disappear, they disappeared at some point, and then they tried to give Ash Ketchum new friends, and then none of those new friends, I think the complaint was none of those new friends, including Brock and Misty, were at the tournament with Ash Ketchum to see him win and become the very best, the world tournament, whatever it was. That kind of sucks. Now they're bringing back Brock and Misty, which was nice, but they really need to bring back quite a lot of people, including a lot of Pokemon, in a very short amount of time. It doesn't feel like they fully thought all of this through. So almost certainly what you would do here is you'd have this giant montage of Pokemon that would all show up, much like this image. Ash Ketchum has not been allowed to really evolve. His animation style is a little bit better now than it was 25 years ago, but that's pretty much it. But he hasn't been able to really grow up as a kid. Thus, Brock and Misty really won't be able to change their appearance or grow up as a kid. So it is one of those weird, almost like school reunion type experiences, if you were to put it in the real world, where if somebody who you were friends with for one summer, which is probably about as long as Brock and Misty were with him, but if they came back 25 years later, it's like, sure, you might have a few fun conversations and reminisce a little bit, but you're not really friends at that point. Like the actual timeline of Pokemon probably is only a few years, so relatively speaking, Brock and Misty may have been hanging around with him for a year, maybe two, and then they've been gone for a year. Brock certainly was replaced at a point for a really dumb reason with another character, which that too creates less time in which Brock really was involved with Ash. I think relationships and friendships worked a lot better in the Digimon series, really. Like, sure, maybe the Digimon characters are just not as cute, and Digimon doesn't have the power of Nintendo and anywhere as many good games behind it, and Digimon definitely was just late to the party. But after the first couple of seasons of the anime of Digimon, I think the Pokemon series would have done a lot better to say, hey, yeah, let's steal Digimon's idea and have the characters slowly grow up season to season and become older and just grow with the age of their original fandom. But of course, Pokemon didn't choose to do that, and instead has for 25 years been targeting itself straightly to a new audience every year of younger brothers and sisters being introduced to these games by their older siblings and cousins and things like that, which I guess is just a testament to the confidence of people sticking to Pokemon and being fans of Pokemon for the long haul, which Digimon definitely did not have that on its side. Noticeably though, Pokemon is supposed to be about the Pokemon, and it doesn't ever really feel like in the cartoon in particular that it's about the Pokemon, and even in the games it's not really about the Pokemon so much. Let's see, Video Games Chronicles has some first footage of Hollywood's Super Nintendo World. It's important to point out, we may have already seen this footage. It's important to point out, though, that the Super Mario World in Japan was incredibly small and looked almost exactly the same as this Hollywood version is. It seems like they almost certainly are just copying and pasting everything for the Hollywood version. Yeah, this is not showing us much at all. It's just slow panning up and down footage. But when they added the Donkey Kong Country section in the Japanese Nintendo World, they doubled the amount of size and kind of doubled the amount of rides and events and things you can do there. Even at that, it is questionable whether, if you were on a good day at Nintendo World in Japan, whether you would not be able to go through both everything in the Mario side and everything in the Donkey Kong side easily. A lot of these parks are built around the idea of being incredibly congested and just having incredible long lines. And as more people potentially would want to go to these amusement parks, you would definitely prefer there to be 2-3 times as much rides and events and activities that you can do. This video is showing some new stuff very slowly. You have like these headless costumes with helmets on them, which I don't think you get to put on these costumes though. So in a weird way, it's almost like it's disembodied suits of the characters. They're really just panning and down, up and down on everything. So this probably is more technical reference imagery than anything else. Here you have some kind of shadow play thing that I don't think the Nintendo World of Japan has. More interactive things like this probably would help somewhat. Ways to like spend your time when you're waiting. Yeah. But there really has not been any depiction of any rides at all. This is just all exterior things, and at the end here we're seeing advertisements for other attractions, or Attractions Magazine, which I guess is the place that took all those pictures. You really don't want to go to an amusement park in the first year because any ride has slightly a higher chance of breaking in the first year, and that amount gets reset every time the ride gets moved, which is why you really don't want to ever ride any kind of ride that's on a moving carnival or circus. Plus, again, that Donkey Kong World almost certainly is going to come out in a year, so 2 years. 2 years to let the crowds die down, potentially. But 2 years is a lifetime, certainly, for children. And if your children are 8 now, 10, they may not be interested in it. At 10, they might not be interested at 12. So everybody's situation is going to be a little different. Very noticeably, too, there's practically nothing of interest there if you're just a Nintendo fan who does not have a family to take with you. Last thing I think anybody should be, whether they want to be or not, is a creepy old man going to Nintendo World by themselves with no kids with them at all. I wouldn't be surprised if they straight up forbid that. But yeah, the Disney adult equivalent, I don't think that they're trying to pander to that. I imagine they will eventually pander to that, and there'll be all kinds of ridiculous, like, Disney adult focused attractions or Nintendo adult focused attractions. But I imagine it'll take a while for that to start happening. Moving on, a playable early Left 4 Dead prototype has appeared online. The prototype is a mod of Counter-Strike source named Zombie City. I don't know if there is really much of a difference there. What's interesting is this video is coming from Wolf Clock, I guess is CL0OCK, which it has only 6,000 subscribers. So this could be like a fake prototype. But also, Valve News Network needs to be pointed out here as, well, I guess Valve News Network doesn't even exist anymore. But Tyler McVickerson, who used to go by Valve News Network, has gotten increasingly bad about running his channel. His channel is kind of a great example of where he changed the name, he changed the type of content on there, and as somebody who was following him for Valve News and as Valve News Network, I am definitely not happy with his changes, as he's tried to make it more about him, and yet he's still desperately also trying to cash in on any and every potential small bit of speculation that he can have around Valve releasing something new. But the problem is it's 100% tease, really, because like Valve just does not release new things in any frequency that would matter, and so he's often come off as just making a mountain out of a molehill. Some new item shows up in the Steam's API, and then all of a sudden that's Valve is about to announce something brand new, and it would be wonderful if Valve announced something brand new, but I really would not believe it until I saw it. Yeah, and as far as this this Valve Counter-Strike mod goes, okay, it's a mod with zombies in it. It doesn't seem like it really has 4 players, so that whole aspect seems to be out. It probably does not have any of the technology that was cool around Left 4 Dead, as far as having a AI director and audio cues and randomizations. So, yeah. But I'm not particularly impressed by what I'm seeing. This guy can obviously trigger something. He's just deciding whether or not he wants to trigger. What is noticeable is that one of the guns in this demo is like an automatic rifle, and you don't get to really use an automatic rifle in the in Left 4 Dead. Sorry, lost my train of thought there. I'm trying to really win here when I'm probably not needing to. I screwed up there. Alright, well I messed up by putting 3 in a row, which allowed him to summon that, which shouldn't be too much of a deal. Summon this. Oh, this is already getting too slow for my liking. As sacrilegious as it may sound, I don't think I really want Valve to announce a new game. Or, arguably I'd be alright with them announcing 2 new games, particularly if one was in some way connected to a beloved franchise. And for them to really say, yes, we've got a Half-Life 3 of some sort, or yes, we've got a Portal 3, or even if there was like a Counter-Strike Go major update, and then I would be okay with them announcing like one. I could probably summon something here, but I'm not gonna risk it. I'd be okay with them announcing like one new game to surprise me with. But if they came out and they announced 3, 4, 5 new games, then I would definitely be concerned about, are they just shifting focus once again away from Steam Deck? I wouldn't be upset if they were shifting focus away from VR, but they really should probably stick with VR to some extent. Alright, well, I screwed the pooch there. Yep, that was a mistake. But yeah, Valve certainly can do a lot more for PC gaming by improving and maintaining quality on the Steam Deck. Working towards a Steam Deck 2, even if a Steam Deck 2 is not coming out until 2 or 3 years from now. There's points to activating that, even if it is gonna just kill this guy anyways. But yeah, working on the Steam Deck operating system, working on the Steam Deck as a concept, potentially licensing out the general configuration of a Steam Deck internally wouldn't be a terrible idea. Like the Logitech G Streamer or G Cloud, whatever that device is that's way too expensive and running Android. If that device was replaced as being the only real competition to the Steam Deck with something that was using the very specific hardware setup that the Steam Deck was using, and yet externally it just looked different, there is an interesting thought there. I could see myself buying a Steam Deck type device that had the exact same CPU, GPU, and just hardware set up, but it didn't have the touchpads on the outside. It moved the buttons around a little bit differently and just gave a different offering for people. If somebody made one that was like for bigger hands that had bigger battery life, that would be fine too. If it's the same hardware connected the same way, then the software probably would work exactly the same. You don't even really need that level of compatibility because a significant amount of devices have been shown to be capable of having the SteamOS installed on it anyways because it's Linux. But yeah, if there was 2 or 3 companies making Steam Decks and reducing the price through manufacturing and competition, that would be great. Even if they didn't call them Steam Decks. Let's see. Moving on. The Borderlands movie reshoots have been taken over by the Deadpool director. The first screenings of the film took place late last year. So they're now doing reshoots directed by Tim Miller. The original director Eli Roth had handed over the reins to the project for the final 2 weeks of shooting as he departed for a new project. It is almost certainly untraditional, probably unprofessional, to not see a project as a director all the way through. This definitely seems like there's a level of internal conflict that's happening there between, I guess, the director and any other associate executive producers, people above the director, funders. Randy Pitchford might be the person that's causing trouble there, but could be anybody. At the end of the day, the thing I think to take from this is don't get your hopes up to think Borderlands as a movie and live action movie is going to be in any way good, because if it was good they would have shown us something over the course of the last year. And it's not incredibly crazy to do reshoots, but it is somewhat crazy to do reshoots a year later, even around the pandemic. Like, this is all we've got. We've got a silhouette of people that have been intentionally put in silhouette so that you cannot see anything from it. It's just backlit in shadow. So that's basically nothing as far as telling us what this is even going to look like or how this movie would even play out. Let's see, have we done the daily quest today? Because I don't feel a real need to play any more than that. Fusion summon, link summon, some more. There we go. When I look at this, though, there is something that stands out. You have here what looks like a standard Psycho Freak character, which you don't get to play as a Psycho Freak character in Borderlands 1 at all. As far as the first couple of characters, you don't get to play as a Psycho Freak character in the main game without the DLC of Borderlands 2. You do unlock a Psycho, I think, as DLC in Borderlands 2. And yet, this seems to be a main character. Here we have a Tiny Tina but from the height of it, you have like a somewhat short character, but not really as short as it might seem, because when you look at the boots that most of these other characters are wearing, there are some fairly high lifts there. So I wouldn't be surprised if you have a tiny teeny character being played by a 16, 17, 18-year-old character. Definitely not the 10 or 11-year-old character that you first see Tiny Tina as, which may make the whole rabbit theme and dress skirt theme feel a little off. I would assume that this lady here is the Firehawk character, but it could be somebody else. I would assume that this is Roland as the gun guy, but it could be somebody else. But noticeably, I have no idea who this character is. You have like a nice hairdo and a skirt, and looks like some kind of leggings under that. And yeah, it kind of feels like it might be Handsome Jack if they flipped Handsome Jack into a Handsome Jill character. There's a bit of blue glowing hair, which maybe means that she's holding some kind of Claptrap character, but Claptrap is over here in silhouette, so that wouldn't be it. So I have no idea who this character is. It is possible that some of these characters are from Borderlands 3 and I just haven't played Borderlands 3. But yeah, this really is telling us nothing. Each of these characters, I think, are facing away from us, so you'd only see their back anyways. Which then makes this blue. I guess this might be an armband. But yeah. That really shows us nothing at all. Yeah, and that's all they've got to show, which is ridiculous. I heavily suspect this Borderlands movie is going to look really, really bad. It has such a high chance of it looking bad in so many different ways, because you go with that comic book art style that is iconic to Borderlands. It's going to look awful in the real world. You're going to have to drop that, and as soon as you go into the realistic art style, it's going to feel weird, certainly, and not make a lot of sense. Almost certainly the best thing to do would be to make a Borderlands movie that looks very much just like your average action movie, with realistic people in somewhat realistic outfits, and leave it at that. Like, you can't really go for the big colorful appearance. If anything, maybe you could try to resell the movie a second time with a CGI effect over each character, making them cartoony and colorful after the fact, but then really you're just making the video game. The better move here, the move that Randy Pitchford and just Westerners in particular refused to take, was, if you're going to make a Borderlands movie, the real move would have been to just make an animated movie. Hand over those 3D models and the general storyline that's already been throughout the game to an animation company in Korea, and have them make a CGI animated movie and try to put that in theaters. It wouldn't really sell that well, but I don't know how many people that aren't familiar with Borderlands are going to watch a movie called Borderlands anyways. Even people who are fans of Borderlands, which most fans of Borderlands are probably Fairweather fans at best. I don't know how many of them are actually going to go see the movie either. Ideally, you don't want to wish for someone's failure, but ideally it is better for the gaming industry if this movie fails horribly. It causes Randy Pitchford to finally disappear, go in retirement, sell his last bit of control away from Gearbox, and just be done with it. Like, in the same way, I don't really hope that a Death Stranding movie succeeds. It seems so backwards to say you want an interactive medium that is super long and visually amazing, like Death Stranding or even the Borderlands games. You want to squeeze that into a 2-hour movie to try to get a new audience, which the only new audience you possibly would get there is people that don't play video games, which is just old people that don't want to play video games. Let's see. Moving on, footage of an unannounced Sony shooter has allegedly been leaked. An insider claims the unnamed title is being co-developed by XDev. What's funny is when I first read this headline, I thought this was saying that there had been a spree shooter at Sony, at one of Sony's offices, which I guess that highlights the problem of calling games shooters at this point, is that anytime I see shooter, I'm thinking, oh, has there been another school shooting or something in the United States? But no, this is just a game. Seems to me like it's an incredibly rough footage, if you're gonna say that. Which that doesn't mean anything at all. Like 5 seconds here of footage. You have like a big robot and you have a military guy with a gun. You could definitely put a ridiculous amount of polish on a game in the last couple of months and make it way better. I guess the bigger question is, who is XDev? What has XDev worked on before? And I guess the question there is not really being answered. But there is something kind of noticeably weird around the idea of Sony making a military shooter that looks just like a generic shooter, because all the Sony exclusives have gone in different directions most recently. You think about God of War, that is following in the path of the God of War series, which is definitely not a military shooter. You think about Last of Us, that's definitely not just a military shooter. You think about Horizon Zero Dawn, that's not a military shooter. Uncharted is a shooter, but not quite a military one, much more of a Tomb Raider ripoff. I just don't think Sony has any real history that I can think of having exclusive games. Like the Spider-Man game definitely is not a military shooter. They just don't have an experience of having exclusive games that are military shooters. That being said, maybe they're working on one because they're afraid they're going to lose Call of Duty, which honestly, some more competition to Call of Duty Modern Warfare would make a lot of sense anyways, because those games are just getting worse and worse. Inherently, the audience may not be that interested in playing as military people in any ways, because there's no love lost, certainly, for the military in the United States amongst the younger generations. Nobody has that kind of patriotism that previous generations were brainwashed into. But yeah, this could very well be a sci-fi shooter, and it could have a bigger twist and be somewhat like Horizon Zero Dawn. In a lot of ways, you could have made Horizon Zero Dawn a shooter very easily. Just set it in the exact same universe and have a different character that's not using a bow, but is instead just using a gun. Video Game Donkey did come out and announced his first game that he's going to be publishing. So the game is real and the company is real, it seems. He got some pushback from mostly mainstream video game journalists, and I imagine just publishers in general, trying to push against the idea of YouTuber creating his own publishing company, which, you know, it is pretty crazy for a YouTuber, even a very successful one, to make their own publishing company. But they would be better as a publisher, frankly, than most publishers, if you want a publisher to actually publish good games. Now, if you want a publisher to actually succeed and make money, then the slimy corporate CEOs and management that run most publishers are probably going to be better at that. Most successful publishers probably are very good at ripping off developers and making as much profits through slimy methods such as forcing in-game monetization, whereas Video Game Donkey may be much more like a Criterion Collection, publishing what he wants because of real quality. That being said, Animal Well is not a AAA game by the looks of it. His company, Big Mode, it was originally announced in February. Animal Well was originally announced in February of 2022, and it is on Steam even now, so let's just look at the Steam page. Animal Well, as a game, if this actually plays, which it very possibly won't, is kind of a Metroidvania game with more of an element of it being animals instead of weird space aliens. It's got an aesthetic that's a little pixely, and it probably looks a little bit better in motion if the video was playing. But yeah, it looks interesting, to say the least. Now, should I put it on the fall list when it doesn't even have an announcement date? No, I don't think so. Yeah. In a lot of ways, this is an interesting experiment for Big Mode compared to Second Dinner as a new developer. Whereas, like, Second Dinner, makers of Marvel Snap, was able to get Nexus as a publisher, at least on Steam, and was able to get that Marvel license and come out very big out of the gate. Whereas in this case, Big Mode as a developer has to do the contracts it can do, and so far the contract that it can do that they can announce is that they've got Animal Well from Shared Memory. Now, I will say this game doesn't look awful by any means. This is still several tiers above your average trash games that you see on Steam, and Big Mode certainly could have been that, where it was just a vanity project and then the very first game they would announce and release would just be around Video Game Donkey and himself as a YouTuber. But yeah, I'm glad he didn't go that route. The video will start playing here. This is more zoomed in and even more pixely, but it does show in motion that pixels do work a little bit better in motion. Not 100% sold on this game by any means, but it does seem like it plays with the concept of interacting with animals in different ways instead of a Metroid game where you just be shooting everything you see on screen. don't know if there's really too much to say here. Suffice it to say though, Animal Wild looks like a real game. Big Mode looks like a real thing. Is it a huge loss potentially if Video Game Donkey got so good at being a publisher and running Big Mode that he stopped making YouTube content? It would kind of suck, I'm sure, for fans of Video Game Donkey, but I don't think it's really that big of a loss. Like, Video Game Donkey really does not make the most amount of videos, or even what I would say are particularly informative amounts of videos. He makes comedy videos every couple of weeks that are really short, and half of the things he says on his comedy videos are actually just lies for comedic effect, and perhaps they should be better labeled as lies. So yeah, you really don't get a true look at who Video Game Donkey's personality or thought processes are. The Game Grumps have their own little publishing company, and they were able to publish 2 or 3 games, but they didn't go particularly heavy into it to the point where they stopped making the Game Grumps videos or YouTube content. Moving on, Video Games Chronicle says Steam has reached 10 million concurrent in-game players for the first time. The milestone was achieved over the weekend. So, yeah. Excuse me. This points out something, certainly. If PC gaming is about half of people on Steam and half of people on other platforms, then that means that any time, at best, you could hope for 20 million players, and you're definitely not going to have even 10 million players all playing the same game, which highlights how there is a big difference between selling potentially 10 million copies in a series, or even one game selling 10 million copies, and having 10 million people actually playing at the same time. Undoubtedly, if you were to break down what would it be? 24 times 7 would be 168. Let's say there's about 168 hours in a week. Yeah. Of 168 hours in a week, much of which you're going to be asleep, your average gamer probably is spending at most 5 to 8 hours of gameplay in that. So there is a very small percentage chance that any large swell of gamers is going to hit bigger numbers. But obviously this number will just keep going up and up and up, and it's a big round number, so they're celebrating, certainly, but that is let's see if we could possibly get more information here. Yeah. It seems to me like if you would look at those charts, it's saying that there's 26 million users right now, and that the 24-hour peak was actually 30 million, which I feel like, I guess that means there's a big jump here between people who have the app open versus people who are actually playing the game. Yeah. Like, it does seem like it does kind of teeter at nearly 10 million fairly commonly. I guess what they're doing here is showing the Steam program itself. Like right now it's at 6 million. So of that, you have a top 10 here of fairly common CSGO people: Dota, Lost Ark, PUBG, Rust, Call of Duty, Apex Legends, GTA 6. Yeah, I guess Call of Duty still gets a lot of players. EA Sports, Elden Ring, Ark Survival, Evolved. Let's see. Payday 2 still doing pretty good. Witcher 3 still doing pretty good. Rocket League in 25th position. Is there anything on this list, though, that's particularly surprising? Well, Fallout 4 making it into the 50th position. It's kind of surprising. Craft being so low at 66th position is kind of surprising. Conan Exiles beating out Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel. Now, for the top 100, though, nothing super surprising. And this might be an interesting way to also just shop, in particular, if you are looking for the top 100 games that you would want to cover on a YouTube channel or would want to own. Some of this almost certainly also comes around to the Lunar New Year sale not taking place, instead being replaced with a spring sale, which is, I guess, going to be later. Lunar New Year this year starts on January 22nd, so it's not that far off, and they wanted a bigger gap, is what they're saying, between the winter sale. But yeah, having a Lunar New Year sale is not going to really help around that. Apparently, this is new. Oreo will start selling Xbox cookies later this month. The limited edition cookies will feature Xbox logo and button designs, which, you know, that kind of cross promotion isn't a terrible thought. Like, dude, when you eat an Oreo cookie, it just saying Oreo and then having this little antenna logo here that I'm sure somebody's going to say is alchemic or demonic or something. It's really unnecessary. Like, yes, it does, when you take an Oreo out of the sleeve, point out that Oreos are actually Oreos and not some kind of dollar store ripoffs. But, you know, you could be cross-promoting things if you have small symbols that like this. And arguably the AB up and then XY all should go away, and they should just stick with the Xbox logo as a symbol. And I don't know how deep you could really go into this, because like Nintendo Switch Joy-Cons or the Nintendo logo like is just, I don't even know which Nintendo logo they're really promoting. Really, it's just the Nintendo in red, I guess, these days. So you couldn't really do much there. You could put a PlayStation logo here also. You could certainly have custom names on Oreos, like they were putting custom names on Coca-Cola bottles, but that's probably a little too expensive. I guess the question comes down to, are they at a point where you could get a laser cutter, some kind of food grade laser cutter, to print a blank Oreo and then laser cut all kinds of patterns, or are they making custom baking molds for each of these? I imagine there's a high chance that these are custom baking cookie cutter molds that they're doing. The question, I guess, to ask here, though, is, are you getting anything extra from this? Because that's really what you would want. You get exclusive Oreo themed in-game content such as armor packs and vehicle skins for popular titles like Forza, Sea of Thieves, and Halo Infinite. Participants will be entered to win prizes from custom Oreo hardware, Xbox consoles, Xbox Game Pass, Ultimate memberships, and holiday experiences for the whole family. Now, arguably, also, maybe none of this should be legal. Maybe snack foods like Oreos should be illegal in the first place, but potentially encouraging teenagers, kids, to buy more Oreos and effectively overeat on snacks they shouldn't be eating in the first place to win a prize should possibly be illegal. The idea of giveaways in food products have always been rip-offs, and like just not necessary. You're really crossing a line between a need humans need to eat and a want, in that kids would want Xboxes or would want empty calorie sugared snacks. Let's see. Moving on, the last Video Games Chronicle article we have for today says Naughty Dog is saying that revealing past games too early hurt the studio. Its next game looks to be announced closer to release to help combat a work-life balance issues. That's almost certainly always the case. What's funny here is it seems like Naughty Dog is facing allegations of crunch culture, and then they interviewed with a comic book co-president Neil Druckmann. I don't even know what comic book is. Comicbook.com. Yeah, I think you need to add the .com there. And apparently Vince McMahon is returning to the WWE. So that might affect video games too. But yeah, I totally agree with the idea of not announcing a game until it's pretty much done, if not completely done. It really would make a lot of sense for them to not announce a game until it's already gold, because announcing a game anytime before that point is leaving the door open for it to be canceled, or just creating an artificial timeline that's unnecessary. And it really just highlights publishers are being bad at their jobs, and production managers, directors being bad at their jobs. I don't know if I have anything else to really say there. Seems like they're dancing around the word crunch by saying work-life balance issues, when they really should just stick with calling it crunch, what it has become known as. Moving on to our Gemetsu articles. Back Firewall launches January 30th. We already talked about this. This week's Japanese releases. Let's see, our Dragon Ball Z Kakarot and One Piece Odyssey. Very much anime only in the physical releases, alongside a fairly small list of digital only releases. So yeah. Maybe this is pointing more towards the Lunar New Year concept, in that you would have basically two Bandai Namco games releasing, competing against each other, and nothing else. Seems kind of dumb, but I guess what they're thinking is that if you're likely to buy One Piece Odyssey, you're likely to buy Dragon Ball Z Kakarot also. Noticeably also, these are being advertised as PS5 games, with Kakarot only being released as a PS5 game in Japan, and One Piece Odyssey being a PS5 and PS4 game in Japan. the Xbox series, getting North American and European versions, but then Asian versions sticking to their PlayStation versions. Let's see, Disgaea 7 has a Fuji trailer, which I imagine Fuji is yet another character, if you want to check that out. Ginka has added a Switch version, launches this summer in Japan. This looks to me like it is probably a visual novel. Yeah. See if we can get a general idea of what kind of visual novel it is. You have a flooded world. That theme gets covered fairly often. You have an anime girl, anime boy. A lot of text, which we'll skip through that. Yeah, not really a lot being shown there. So, I'm not sure if that's particularly supposed to be like a romance story or if that's supposed to be a more mystery adventure story. We'll have to leave it at that. Goblin Slayer, Another Adventurer, Nightmare Feast, developed by Apollosoft and Mebius, is going to be published by Bushy Road Games. None of those names I recognize at all. It's PC and Switch game. Let's see if this Goblin Slayer trailer gets too violent too fast. Okay. Since that is what I know Goblin Slayer as a anime series around the idea of really enjoying brutally killing goblins. Well, this is about the worst video I have ever seen on YouTube. It's literally just a minute 9 seconds. Why don't they get it down to a minute and just make it a YouTube short at that point? Showing labels and logos. Well, that's pretty bad. So yeah, they don't have any visuals to show. Let's see. Mushoku Tensei Jobless Reincarnation Quest of Memories has been announced for PS4, Switch, and PC. Which, this is actually a JRPG. I don't know why they're getting it down to like 1 minute and 10 seconds. Instead of... This may be that actually the exact same video. Yep, it is. It's the exact same video. They were able to make 2 articles around the same video because they're talking about a different game. What sucks is you can't have the word Quest in your title now because it just makes me think of Oculus Quest, which is really my problem more than game publishers, but it's like the idea of the Oculus Quest being able to gain mental ownership over the word Quest is a mistake. And then a macro shooting insight has been announced for PS4, Switch, and PC. And this is the exact same video again. So 3 articles around announcing three different games all in one. Bushi Road Games and Hakama announced an action RPG called Rear Sekai for Switch, which I wonder if that's supposed to be a pun, Rear Sekai, or if that's just an unfortunate translation. Having rear in the name, you have to expect that the entire focus of the game is going to be around somebody with a big butt, but looking at these characters, that doesn't really seem like that's the case. I wouldn't be surprised if Rear Sekai means something in like Japanese chess, shogi or something, or it's some kind of like strategy maneuver move. Well, the video didn't really show me much there, so yeah. It looks like a JRPG, can't really say anything new there. Review Starlight visual novel has been announced for Switch and PC, due out in winter 2023. So it seems to me like this is that same video again. What's happening here is you have Bushiroad Games making an announcement of several games at the moment, and nothing else being announced. Probably, I would suspect, because people are waiting till Lunar New Year, or they're waiting until Lunar New Year ends completely to make any announcements. We are pretty much just dead as far as announcements go. Otherwise, Forspoken has a cinematic trailer, and normally, I guess I wouldn't bother to even watch it, but let's see, we've got so much free time because there's just not that much news. Now, arguably, if I have free time, I should be ambitious and try to play some No More Heroes instead later today, but it tends like that never happens really. I want it to happen very often, and I want to make some other pre-recorded footage, but it doesn't work. My insomnia has once again shifted, so I'm staying up fairly late at night, but it's not leading towards me making that much new content. What I need to find in particular is some kind of activity I can do where I'm not sitting in the chair and not lying on the bed. That's the thing that would really help. So if there was some kind of stand-up activity in which I could actually stand for a long period of time, that would be nice, but I don't know what activity that is that would in any way help my YouTube channel. I will say this cinematic trailer looks better than a lot of what we've seen so far in Forspoken. They're still really not showing a lot other than just trying to be better at implying the isekai element of this game, the other world element of this game, where she was apparently being chased both in the real world and in this magical world, and she's going to have magical abilities, which that's helpful certainly, but it's not quite what you would need. It would make a lot more sense for a cinematic trailer to have some kind of godlike character, which I think already exists in that game, talking, giving a narrative overview. Maybe there is some kind of narrative overview because I didn't actually hear that game. I'm going to give this one a chance. We're going through games that came out on Steam. Gotchi Christmas Party is a 3D CGI gay game, I guess. I don't think it's done with much care. Frankly, it is either intentionally being insulting or just it is insulting for its low quality of CGI realistic gay model characters. And there is something to be said about just like the poses and the outfits that the gay guys often get put in these kind of insulting looking games, where in comparison you would have just a naked woman doing natural average sexual activity, and it would look really nicely polished, and there wouldn't be anything too out of the ordinary or extreme. In comparison to this game, there's a GIF they've put in the about the game showing a naked man opening a beer bottle with his butts, which I don't think would ever actually work, and I don't think anybody should try it and find out either. Yeah, it is not quality, and yet weirdly it is 96% positive among 59 reviewers, which does make me wonder if people are just into adult games, adult gay games, male gay games for the lols and not and for trolling more than anything else, which may be the case. Here's a r/place clone, except for with Twitch integration, which does not look visually polished enough. We really have not seen any male gay games of note on Steam. It is an underserved market, to say the least. Here we have yet another adult game. So clearly over the weekend there was a large collection of them. E-Girl Next Door Exposed has a pink-haired 3D CGI realistic lady in the visual novel aspect. There's also a black-haired lady that's being depicted. The animation here looks kind of nice in some of the adult scenes and pretty bad in the dialogue scenes. So there's a lack of consistency here, but it's still at least a step or two better looking than the gay game we just looked at. It's $3.55 English only. Not great quality, but definitely not anywhere as bad as the other one. Christmas Cats looks too much like an asset flip game. Bloons Bomb Gym Match doesn't look visually polished enough. Well, the mystery. There's probably nothing, but I'll give this a follow. Should I give this a follow though? No, I don't think so. Early access English and Indonesian. That might be why the visual 3D models are just so rough. If this was a game that came out in the 90s, it would have been fine, but for the, what are we even in, 2023 current year argument, this looks bad. Seeking Asylum, same thing, just not to a quality that game should be. I have a racing game here. I guess I'll make YouTube shorts around that. Should I make YouTube shorts around Christmas mini games? I guess. At least in that case, that's a collection of mini games instead of a single mini game, like just solitaire. Pin High looks like it's a 4-way Pong game, but it doesn't look like enough of a game. Single screen Unity type experience. We haven't seen a ton of those single screen Unity games these days. That may very well point to the fact that mobile games are just not willing to be that low effort and sell. Like a single screen Unity puzzle game doesn't sell on cell phones any better than it would sell on PC, so there's less of a reason to potentially have a single screen Unity game made in the first place. I'm very possibly being a little too generous, but if I'm going to be making YouTube shorts around 3 a day, then I will need to get at least 4 YouTube shorts. Well, what would it be? 6? Probably about 9 YouTube shorts. Yeah. Every stream. That would make a lot of sense. At least 9. because you have to account for the weekends, assuming I am putting them out on the weekends, which I think I am. This next game, called A Familiar World, is a square puzzle game with images of 3D CGI women. The pictures are very artistic, and frankly, of the ones I'm seeing, I wouldn't even say they're really pornographic at this point, as it is just naked women there. They don't seem to be actually going to the extremes. That's kind of the problem with the idea of softcore and hardcore. Softcore means you just don't show the lower genitals area, but butts usually are okay in softcore, and then hardcore is you show everything. But it would be better if there was a explanation about whether or not you see penetration, whether it's censored, whether it's blackbarred, like Japanese porn, blurred, blackbarred, whatever, whether there's actual groping here. A Familiar World is actually pretty weird in that every screenshot I'm seeing doesn't seem to have any groping of any sort. Probably because these are all still images that were either licensed. They do seem consistently the same characters, but the actual game obviously has been built around somebody who just made a collection of CGI still images in the first place. The game is $3.99, and yeah, the interface looks pretty bad, but the game itself doesn't look terrible. Let's see. Next we have a game called Star's End, which definitely seems like it's just a collection of way too much, in that you're in space and you've got guns and you're running around planets and riding horses. You've got sci-fi looking stuff. You've got swimming happening here. You can see it's very, very mixed as a game, and it probably just came out of early access. Let's see. This still needs months of patching to reach even playable state, let alone launch to completely game-breaking bugs in the first couple hours. Yep. This definitely is a game I wouldn't want to touch with a 10-foot pole. Annum Perium. Looks like this is not anything that I'd really want to play. It's an online PvP game. Kind of like a tabletop game. Speaking of tabletop games, it's worth pointing out, even though I don't talk about Dungeons and Dragons, I have been pointed by YouTube's algorithm to look at some other YouTube content creators talking about Hasbro / Wizards of the Coast / Dungeons and Dragons new license for fan creations. These are fan creations that potentially are going to include things like Critical Role, and are going to include basically anybody who makes anything at all based off of the Dungeons and Dragons general terminology and things that I guess Dungeons and Dragons thinks they own a copyright on. Although I'm not sure how much is actually really copyrightable, as far as the idea of orcs and trolls and things like that may have been Kleenex to the point where it's not really copyrightable, although specific events in Dungeons and Dragons lore based on the rule books or specific numbers or stats, maybe those are more copyrightable. Anyways, for people who probably don't care too much, you can go, if you do care, I recommend go checking out some YouTubers talking about it. To make the long story short, Hasbro Wizards of the Coast is just trying to screw over everybody. They're trying to put out a new license that revokes the previous lifetime license that had already been out. The previous license was like 900 words and just gave everybody permission to do everything that they wanted to do as long as it wasn't too egregious. And this new license is like 9,000 words, and it's basically trying to force people to pay for using Dungeons and Dragons stuff that they would have been able to use for free as an open source type license. And it's trying to revoke the previous license, which I don't think is legal. I don't think you can put out a new license saying we're revoking an unrevocable license before. But who knows? And it's gonna, if Hasbro gets away with that, it's just gonna be because Hasbro has a ton of money and can pay lawyers to get away with that. But yeah, it does not look good. And working even within the limits of the new license is not safe for anybody because it can be changed at any point with 30 days notice. So if you started to work on some game like Baldur's Gate 3 and you were going to rely on the new license, the 1.1 license, in protecting your rights as the creator of a Baldur's Gate 3 type game, they could change it in 30 days and just ruin your entire business model easily. Yeah, and certainly that probably does in part center around the idea that 5 Hasbro games may have been canceled recently. Is that this new license is now this new 1.1 license has already been leaked, but it was supposed to be like announced either yesterday or a day or two ago, and Hasbro just didn't put out an announcement. So perhaps they are rethinking it, but they couldn't be rethinking it too much. If this leak was perhaps the worst case scenario, maybe Hasbro will come out with one that is slightly better, but I don't think anybody's going to be happy. And inherently, if you were going to make a product that was kind of like Dungeons and Dragons, I don't think you would at any way actually try to work with Hasbro with that. You would say, I'm going to make a parody game that is like Dungeons and Dragons and parody it and does not need a copyright, and lean heavily into that and risk being sued. Or you're just going to make a fantasy game based on Tolkien, the public domain Tolkien type characters and creatures, or you're just going to make your own new characters and creatures. We might see a shift in the long run of Dungeons and Dragons inspired video games or board games, moving towards like more European monsters from Brothers Grimm type era, or more Japanese Asian monsters in general. It is, I suppose, a little striking that there isn't a Japanese equivalent to Dungeons and Dragons that I can name off the top of my head, where you're just running into a bunch of Shikai and Oni and things like that, and that if anybody is playing Dungeons and Dragons type games in Japan, it probably is just Dungeons and Dragons still. And a bigger argument certainly is I don't know how much Dungeons and Dragons really is going to survive at all, because all of those, both Magic the Gathering and Dungeons and Dragons, were the cornerstone of getting people to go to comic book stores. Comic book stores probably are all going out of business in the next decade. And certainly Magic the Gathering is, from what I hear from real fans of Magic the Gathering, it's failing miserably. So Hasbro's 2 main tent poles are collapsing. So as video gamers, we may see a lot of people who used to play board games moving over to video games of other types completely. Moving on, let's see, what's this? Karakurai Kinkiki. Some kind of VR hack and slash game with the samurai sword against robots. Yeah, this doesn't look great, but I'll give it a chance. Although I am just putting a VR game on the follow list and have said that by the time we get around to Z's again on the follow list cleanup, I'm gonna probably just get rid of all the VR games because I'm fairly ready to commit to the idea of never owning a VR headset or owning a VR headset so far in the future that any VR game released now is not going to be relevant. Do I want to say yes to this game? You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to make a YouTube short around this, but I'm not going to put it on the follow list. Kanji Drive looks like it's probably a learn kanji game. Almost certainly a game that, if it's of any quality at all, it would only be useful to people learning kanji who probably natively speak Japanese in the first place. Yeah. So, it being in English only, it's probably not worth it. One Giant Leap. We are into the later games that have come out on January 8th, and that implies to me we probably won't see any adult games now. Although there's just always an opportunity. I think I'll say no to this. What language is this? Spanish, Latin America, and English. Breakout 13 is a full motion video. Not sure I really like the idea of the story here, and that you have Korean kids sent to this juvenile detention facility, and apparently they're being tortured and they have to break out. Let's see. Well, I'll give it a follow. Is this in Korean? It's English and Chinese. So I was assuming this is Korean, but this might be straight up China. Almost certainly there are things like this in many countries, and I definitely wouldn't be surprised if there are Chinese re-education camp type facilities in specifically for kids. And frankly, there are similar things, perhaps not as extreme in the United States, but also school systems and prison systems are definitely not regulated. Do I want to make a YouTube short around this? I don't want to, but I think I should. I think it would be weirdly unfair to filter it out just because of the negative storyline. Here we have a game called Building Our Future. So it's like future, but with the futa in it. This is flat 2D women, but with chicks with dicks. Let's just call it what it is. In part, not all of them, but at least one of the girls is the futa. I would not call this in the anime. I would not say this is in the anime style, though. This is one of those more rough Russian styles. You have a red-haired lady and a blonde-haired lady. Let's see, can I show a screenshot real quick? The fact that these screenshots move around is the danger here. But yeah, not particularly well drawn imagery here. You have one of these ladies with just like way too much cleavage to be realistic. The game is selling for $13.49. It's English only. And again, the fact that you see way more Chicks with Dicks Fuda games, and they come off somewhat as more of a troll than... I mean, maybe this game isn't really a troll. It doesn't seem like it's a troll, but it does seem like there's this odd fetish, or extreme fetish that they're targeting, and yet a standard guy-on-guy game seems to be not... Nobody seems to be interested in making that. That's even with like Daddy Dating Simulator as an example. Like, to have guys dating guys as a game, and that isn't even an adult game. They had to have the Game Grumps effectively publish that story themselves, and they threw in the fact that they were all dads just so that they had the name and the gimmick there. Like, wall mustn't fall, doesn't look like anything. Yeah, it seems very weird. It's just a real lack of quality of adult games in general. Like, perhaps a lot of that blame certainly has to fall on the Japanese animators too, is that there is really just a lack of anime guy-on-guy content out there in general compared to anime girl-on-girl or guy-on-girl. This next game is called Horny Clinic, and it's just a slide puzzle game with flat 2D anime girls. Seems to be like 8 pictures. All the characters seem to be fairly large breasted. Noticeably also just all have very large areolas. So visually speaking, you're not getting a lot of variety in body types. You have different hair color, but they're all nurses, so they're in about the same outfit too. Each pose for these flat 2D images seems to really just show off their bodies and not do anything particularly unique. It's just, oh, this person's naked, this person's naked, this person's naked. It's selling for 59 cents and it's English only. It has 8 levels and 8 artworks, so it's not asking a lot, nor is it promising a lot. Is it worth it to spend 60 cents for 8 pictures? No. By no means is that worth it. You could easily find way more pictures for free online. Like, arguably, for what you pay in the internet service provider, if you're paying $60 to $100 a month, the amount of free content as far as porn you can find, that needs to be like the comparison there. And it really could be quite a lot. You could spend all of your time looking at porn online and divide all of that free time. It's probably closer to I would bet if you are somebody looking at porn and you're paying $100 a month just to make the money, the math easy, you're probably talking, usually you'd be looking at videos, so that doesn't really count, but let's just convert one video equals one picture. 9 times 4. I could say, if I was just to pick numbers out of the air, 36 to 3,600 images a month, potentially. Just depending on whether you're looking at like 9 pictures around 4 times a week, which would be a really small amount of porn, to 10 times that. And that is converting videos into one still image, which the vast majority of people would be looking at videos. Whereas usually when the law is involved, they convert every single frame of a video into a picture, but I wouldn't want to use that math. So yeah, I guess if you were watching 3,600 images a month of adult content and you're paying $100, then you would just say a single image is probably, unless my math is wrong, worth maybe 36 cents, which I guess my math is probably wrong there, because I don't think it would be worth that. I think it would be closer to worth about 3 cents to you. And that is also certainly ignoring all the other things you would do online. I'm really just rambling here. Let's move on. I don't think this Midnight Dash is good enough. Fast Burger Simulator. Yeah, I'll give this a chance. Honestly, I probably need to poll just to get a general idea of how many adult pictures people actually look at on the month to get a better average. I'm sure Pornhub or somebody has something like this. This looks like this might be an adult game, but I don't think it really is. It's just flat anime girls and a jigsaw puzzle. Noticeably, you get jigsaw puzzles when it's not an adult game, and you get square puzzles when it is an adult game. Obviously, people looking for the adult content don't want to really struggle with it. This is a case, it seems pretty obvious that you have very possibly licensed or stolen images just being asset flipped by the same publisher. Yep. And then Hentai Room is obviously an adult game. It's flat 2D anime girls in, well, most of the screenshots are just showing lewd poses of them in underwear with the camera being up their skirt. So in a lot of ways this probably would be within the realm of YouTube family friendly, or at least close to it. This game is 84 cents and claims to support every language in the game, and it is just yet another square puzzle game. Yep, all the screenshots are really just poses like this, usually from the other direction though, looking directly up their skirt. Low effort name, low effort game. Nothing really else to say around that. No Stone Unturned might be something, so I'll give that a chance. And I guess at this point I am not even really caring if a game is free or not. So if it's free, I'm making a YouTube short on it. If it's a free game, I'm putting it on the fall list. I probably am going to come back at some point and realize that I have far too many free games on the fall list when really they should be on the wish list. This game I thought had already come out. It feels like they're re-releasing it. Let's see. Scrap rate, Rydos. I'll give that a chance. I don't know how many more of these games we have, but this game does not look good, but having a shooting gallery with different types of targets would be nice. Now, I don't know if there ever is a point where a shooting range would put up what are effectively archery targets in the shooting range. That doesn't make a lot of sense. Even if you were going to do an archery range, which is basically like a shooting range, but requires maybe not quite the same kind of material at the back, you usually have straw bags hanging up to shoot at them, not archery circular targets or foam targets. There is definitely room for making something like this. Maybe it doesn't need to particularly be in VR, but it needs to visually be polished a lot more. We have something called the Great Artist, which looks interesting enough. Carlos the Taco. Yeah, I'll give it a chance, just because it's a silly gimmick of an idea. What's going to potentially suck here is if we see, what was I going to say? I'm forgetting what I was going to say, because I'm looking at another one of the same publisher doing kind of a joke gay game, Gotchi Space Orgasm this time. Well, since I lost my train of thought, I'll just talk about Gotchi Space Orgasm. This time it looks like they're trying to make the game as more of a first-person shooter. It still kind of feels like it's probably an asset flip garbage game. It seems like there's maybe fewer characters. This time there was like 5 characters in the Christmas one, and yep, they're selling it for $1.59, and again, it just doesn't feel like it's any care or love is being put into it at all. Yeah. If we look here at all the games this publisher has published, it is like Furry Arena 18 plus, Sex Hell, let's see, Sex Apocalypse 3D, Sex and Drift, Furry Survivals 18. It's really just definitely trying to go as extreme and kind of insulting joking in its releases, instead of really making a product that people might like. Oh yeah, now I remember what I was going to say. I was looking at Carlos the Taco here. What would really suck is if all of a sudden I start to find keywords from the YouTube shorts that tell me, oh, this actually would get me a lot more views, so I should just be using these keywords or going for weirder games. I really don't want to be like the Gotchi series that we just saw, where I'm just pandering to try to get the most clickbait views as possible. Like I really do try to not be a clickbaiter as much as possible, and arguably that's why my channel has not really succeeded, is because I really should be clickbaiting way more, but I don't know a appropriate way to do that. Even when you look at like Game Grumps, they just put random titles that don't explain what you're about to see at all to clickbait you into them, which is insane that you wouldn't put the title of the game that you're about to play in every single episode of that game. It really points out that the games are secondary in most content that is created. But yeah, that was what I was saying, is I don't want to be pushed by success further and further away from making good quality products. Let's see, next we have a game on here called Fears of the Fathom, which looks like it's just a horror game. Still feels a little asset flippy, but I will say some of these screenshots are showing things you just wouldn't normally see in an asset flip game, like a significant amount of cones and things on the desks and like things on the shelves of a grocery store. Yeah, Like, if this is an asset flip, it's an asset flip that has flipped such an incredible amount of assets that it is transcending away from the idea of an asset flip. That being said, I don't think that there really is a game here I want to play, particularly since this is supposed to be episode 3 and the whole episodic thing. I am glad episodic games are pretty much dead at this point. The motorcycle here looks way worse and has dark screenshot syndrome, so we can dismiss that very quickly. And hack and shoot heroes doesn't look like anything that I would really want to play, but I'll be incredibly generous and give it a chance anyways. So we're at our GameDeveloper.com articles. We already talked about Vampire Survivor devs crediting clones for a surprise mobile release. We already had talked about Focus Entertainment adding an ex-Bethesda member, ex-Bethesda developer Sean Brennan as CEO. I'm going to actually open up my other news sources because I feel like there was something else I wanted to talk about. Maybe. Let's see. Genshin Impact acquired $4 billion in global revenue in 2022. Silent Hill 2 Remake will apply adjustments to areas that require modernizing, whatever modernizing means. We will see. And then the Smash Bros. Director Masahiro Sakurai talked about social media attacks on games. Which, yeah, there is kind of a rabid fan base of Smash fans in particular, who were not happy about a lot of the things that were either not put in Smash or were put in Smash, or more likely that mostly people were unhappy about Smash Brothers tournaments just being super controlled and stopped from happening. Yep. That's all small stories that I wanted to mention. Let's see. We already talked about Earl Boone passing away at 81 years old. Steam's top 10 million concurrent in-game users. And then we have Beyond the Stars VR, which is a VR game, so I'll leave it on the follow list. Interactive puzzle game. Beyond the Edge of Owlsguard is a point-and-click adventure game. I'll put that on the wish list. It is out of early access. It is way too expensive for what it is, though. It is also brand new, so it definitely needs to go on sale for what it looks like and how it plays. Beyond the Board DTTA. This is some kind of board game simulator, which I just don't think it's ever going to get any momentum at this point, so I'm going to have to say no to that. It's a free-to-play game, single player only, and it has 4 user reviews. Yeah, it seems like it's a collection of several different mini games and not really tabletop simulator so much. It says it lets you play mini games, 2 different board games, Apogee and Light Hunters. So it is just a collection of mini games. Let's see, Beyond Contact is a open world survival game. I think I would say no to this. It's early access from September of 2021. Some of the screenshots look pretty alright, but I feel like there are better versions of this already as far as survival. And when you actually look at the game, it does just kind of seem like it's a top-down mess. Well, I guess I just don't want to make a decision at the moment. Well, even the mostly positive is only the 70%. Yeah, I'll take it off. Let's see. Bewildered is mixed reviewed. So we'll get rid of that. This is very possibly a student project, but I have no desire to highlight student projects that aren't even well received. Beware looks like it is an irrelevant VR project, so we can take that off. Between cities. Doesn't seem like it's relevant enough, so we can take that off the fall list. Between time, escape room. Is this one you can actually play as a single player? It seems like you can only play it as a single player. Does this require VR? Seems like you can't use it in VR. Oh. Okay. I'm not opposed to playing these kinds of escape room games. They could be short and sweet, and they certainly could be a type of game that I could cover several of in a short amount of time compared to playing JRPGs, which would take a ridiculous amount of time. So I'll put that on the wish list. Betrayer Curse of the Spine. Doesn't look like it's going to be relevant. Early access from 2021. That can go. Berserker Viking board game. I will give this more time. Berserker, just called Berserker, in 2021. That can leave the fall list. And that's the last of the fall list cleanup that I have for today. So yeah, we're back to potentially 2.5 hour episodes, which I am more than happy to have that be the case. Instead of going 3 or 4 hours, which is how it has been in the past, but it's a 2.5 hour episode because there are there really isn't that much news at the moment. Now this really confuses the 10 million milestone, in that over 10 million people have downloaded the MetaQuest app in 2022. How in the world is that the case? I guess in comparison, I imagine probably 100 to a million people, or a billion people even, have probably downloaded the Steam app. And I wouldn't be surprised if a bunch of people accidentally downloaded the MetaQuest app and didn't own the MetaQuest. But yeah, it definitely makes it difficult to figure out if 10 million is a big number or a small number when it comes to video games or VR. For VR, it would be a huge number if there were actually 10 million MetaQuest Oculus Rift type goggles out there being used. In the last stream, Sony had announced this accessibility controller, Project Leonardo. Again, they're showing it in a bad way when really the controller should be on the left or the right, not coming straight down. But we now are getting an update that it's PlayStation 5 only, which I'm not sure why you wouldn't have it be backward compatible. Seems like that would be a simple matter of programming, and it really just feels like Sony is once again doing a Sony thing by telling disabled people in particular that they have to buy a PlayStation 5 to be accommodated better. Apple is reportedly planning to launch an augmented reality VR headset in the fall of 2023. The mixed reality device is expected to be called the Reality Pro and is tipped for a spring reveal. It's funny here, is this what Apple's logo is nowadays? I don't think that's what the logo they're using. I think that's a really old logo. So yeah, if Apple gets into VR, then that would be potentially that would be potentially something to maybe boost AR and VR. If Apple got into VR and it became really, really popular, I could see Valve getting out of VR at that point instead and focusing on the Steam Deck. Koei Tecmo America is interested in potentially, I guess, giving you a free copy of Atelier Ryza 3 if you're a content creator. I assume that's what they're asking for by filling out the form, and that they aren't literally just trying to get you to fill out a form to get their permission to stream their game so they don't content ID copyright claim it. There's also a report that Microsoft is planning an Xbox Showcase event for late January, which that would be fairly early, frankly, if they're going to announce something. It wouldn't be crazy, though, if they were going to announce something new hardware-wise, but it would be odd, to say the least. Like, not crazy to announce something hardware in January, crazy for them to potentially announce something hardware when the Xbox Series X and Series S are so new. Yeah. To get deeper into the weeds with numbers, Steam has hosted over 33 million concurrent users online. So for every one person that was in a game during that 10 million in-game user point, 1.3 people, or what? No, 3.3 people just had Steam open and were just running the app. Which, in all fairness, I imagine most people have Steam open when their computer boots up and they don't do anything with it for many, many hours out of the week. Let's see, I'm scrolling down my Twitter feed just to see if there's anything new to say otherwise. You don't know Jack's 2015 is 60% off if you want that. It is definitely a party game though, so you need friends to play with you to get the best usage out of the You Don't Know Jack party packs. Here's a TubeBuddy retweeting a random person. If you're a content creator and one of your main goals is to become massively successful so you can take care of your family and the people you care about, then I'm rooting for you every day. People who have their priorities like that get my respect forever, which is a nice sentiment. Certainly. Yeah, I guess that is my main goal, is just to have livable wages. I don't particularly want to be massively popular. I just want to be popular enough. But unfortunately, to make that kind of income, you probably will have to be more popular than I would be comfortable with. There's this meme going on right now. People don't pirate old games to play them for free. They pirate them because to keep them alive, because the original cartridges won't last forever. And then here's Nintendo red-faced reading this for Tom and Jerry meme. Yeah. We still are basically silent as far as Twitter goes. It seems like it exists and there's no new drama around it. It does seem like maybe some companies jumped over to other platforms, but maybe did it silently or got censored, because I am definitely not. I didn't see a lot of people posting, we're moving over to this Mastodon platform, click here to find this out. I think it is much more a case that there just isn't a lot of video game news, and as such, I'm just not seeing a lot of bits of information. I also follow the Texas Pinball Festival, and they're going to have Roger Sharp do a presentation. No. Roger Sharp's movie, Pinball: The Man Who Saved the Game, will open in theaters on March 17th. And he will be at the Texas Pinball Festival 2023. This is the person who, in a court case, showed that pinball shots were skillful and not random. And by bringing in a pinball table and showing that to the judge ruled that it wasn't gambling, but was a game of skill, and that stopped. It overturned New York City's 34-year ban on pinball machines in 1976. So, very old story, very, very influential stories, though, to modern video games too, because had that not succeeded, and had there been a ban on pinball machines, there would have definitely continued to be a push to ban arcade machines also. And then if there were no success of arcade machines in the early days, we would have never gotten to consoles or video games in general. It is pretty much a direct one-to-one connection. It is possible, I suppose, that arcade machines would have been allowed through, and then arcade machines may have been a little bit more popular, but not really. I don't think so. I think getting more people to go to the arcade through having a variety of arcade and pinball machines built up the audience of gamers in general way more. Alright, well, that's going to be it for this recording. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want to further follow me on any social media sites, there's a bunch of links down below. And if you want to support me further, there's a link to Patreon, or you can friend me on Steam and gift me a game off my wishlist. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.